Giselle.
Hello, everyone. I'm Giselle. I'm with Lion Brand Yarn, and I'm here with Darren. I'll be moderating for him. He's going to be teaching us some punch needle techniques. That since it is I Love Yarn Day or Week, we're going to be showing you some things to do with the yarn other than knitting and crocheting. I am putting a PDF on the chat box, a handout including some terminology, also two patterns in the back that you'll be able to use once you get some info from Darren. And as Felicia said, any questions you have, please drop them into the chat box, and I'll revert. I'll either answer them, but I'll also just involve Darren, and we can have a nice dialogue and conversation about them. And at the end of the class, I'll put his Instagram and Facebook names and handle on it so that you can follow him and ask him any other questions you may have about the class. All right, Darren, take it away.
Okay, welcome to class, everyone. And today we're going to learn about needle punch. And I just want to show you a few projects I made because it's kind of hard to show under the smaller camera. So this is one thing I made. It's a pillow. I just made the front with needle punch, and then I just sewed fabric on the back and then stuffed it. So you can make, it's one thing you can make after you finish it. And then here are some other little projects I've made. So this is just the kind of thing that you'll have when you're finished. So, and then we'll talk about how you can finish them and different things you can make them into. So let's go ahead and switch to the view of my hands, and we'll go ahead and get started. So just a little bit about needle punch, a little bit of history about it. This is the actual tool that I'm going to be using today. This is a needle punch tool. You thread the yarn through this eye of the needle. The end comes here. You feed it up through, and then the working yarn comes out the back. So it's a very, very old technique. It's been done since the colonial times. Originally, people used to use a bent nail to pull fabric through the through and to make the design through the fabric. You used to use strips of fabric, but now we can use yarn because it's more readily available. So what you need to start with is you do need to have the proper fabric. You need to have some kind of a hoop or some kind of a frame to put it in. These embroidery hoops are perfect for when you're starting. If you get really serious about it, you can buy larger frames with wire gripping hooks on them that you can make large pieces, and it holds the fabric very, very tight for you. Also, you can buy a non-slip frame, which helps to keep the fabric in place a little bit better. So there's some things you can use. You need a hoop or a frame, you need the punch needle, and then you need cloth. And I want to talk a little bit about the cloth and tell you a cautionary tale. So the type of cloth you need is called monk's cloth. And so what I have in this frame is, I don't know if you can see these white lines that are going down it. This monk's cloth for needle punch should have these white stripes, or sometimes they're gold. So it should have a stripe that's going up through the fabric. And that is for needle punch. And one thing you can use for those, with those lines, you want to make sure your fabric is pulled evenly. And if your fabric is pulled really uneven, then those lines will sometimes be, wavy and curvy. So it's not pulled even. So if you make sure you pull it tight, and if those lines are really pretty straight, then you've got it right. I just kind of pulled mine out of the hoop. But I haven't done needle punch for a while, and I went to buy fabric, that was about 2 years ago, at a store here in Brooklyn, and I wasn't really paying attention. They teach needle punch there, so I assumed everything would be fine. And I just went in and told them I needed fabric for needle punch, and I was looking around at stuff, and we were talking, and they cut the fabric, and I left. And I ended up with this fabric, and this fabric does not have the lines on it. And I don't know if you can really tell, but it's very flimsy, and the holes in it the weave is very, very loose, and it's very, very flimsy compared to this. I don't know if you can see the difference on camera. I just don't want anyone else to buy the wrong fabric by mistake. So you can kind of see the difference where this one is a little bit more dense and this one is just very flimsy. And they teach classes there, so they should have known, not to sell me this when I told them I needed it for needle punch. And I wasn't paying attention. So I was living in a fool's paradise and got home and found out I had the wrong thing. So just make sure if you're buying the monk's cloth, you do, I don't know, can you see the lines in it? It has those white lines going down it.
Yeah.
So just look for those. And then the fabric, it should be a loose weave, but it should still have some structure to it. And it shouldn't be like super, super flimsy. It actually feels like a nice fabric. So that's one of the cautionary tales about the monk's cloth. And all that being said, you can also use burlap. Sometimes burlap is a little bit brittle, and over time the strands can break and cause holes in it though, so be careful for that. I've never used rugwarp, but you can use rugwarp. And some people use a primitive linen, which is a very loosely woven linen. It's just like one step up from burlap, I think, and that can also work. So that is some of the fabrics that I recommend. Other than that, if you have a fabric that you think will work, you can go ahead and put it in the hoop and try it, but just don't go out and invest a lot of money in a fabric until you're sure it's going to work. So any questions about fabric choice?
No, nothing yet.
And after you buy your fabric and you want to cut it into a small piece, of course, to put it in your hoop. I didn't secure the edges on this one, and you can see it does fray very, very easily. So what you want to do is I secured the edges on this piece with, I don't know if you can tell, it's just like packing tape. I recommend using like a masking tape or like that blue painter's tape, because when you take it away, it's not going to like damage your cloth as much. But this is all I had on hand, so I just used that, and it's going to secure the edges fine, and it'll be okay. So do make sure you do something to secure your edges, because as you're fussing with it, it will unravel. Okay. Good notes. So another question is, how do you get your design onto the fabric? And so there's a couple different ways. I included a picture of a heart and a picture of a flower in it, and with the kit or with the pattern you can download. And all you have to do is cut those out and just pin them to your fabric and just trace around it with a Sharpie. And I do recommend using a black Sharpie, because I have heard reports that the other kinds of Sharpies, the colors sometimes run over time. And the fabric is so, once you do your needle punch on it, it's very thick, but it could still bleed through and damage the front. So always make sure you're trying to use the black permanent Sharpie. Okay. Another way you can do it is if you have a picture, like maybe from a coloring book or some other kind of a design, you can tape it to a sunny window and then hold your fabric over that and then use that to trace it. If you have a light box, which would be ideal, you can use a light box, but not many people have those at home. You can use iron-on transfer pens or pencils as well to transfer your design. And if you're artistic and you feel comfortable, you can just draw your design freehand, and it doesn't make much difference either way. And if you mess it up, if you draw a design and you mess it up, you can just draw another design right over top of it. And then by the time you put your yarn on it, it'll cover it up and nobody will be able to see. So you don't have to have anxiety about putting the design on it because it's going to cover up anyway. So any questions about how you put your design on this?
Nothing yet. All good.
Okay. Well, now that I've said all that, I actually forgot to grab a Sharpie before I sat down. So I am just going to use just a regular marker. It's a Sharpie, but it's a pink one. So do not use a pink one, just in the case that it could, bleed. We don't want it to have any bleeding. So I'm just going to draw freehand a heart.
Oh, someone actually wants to know, what about words? Can you actually, does it work the same way with letters?
Yes, actually, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. If you could do anything, you can do any type of picture, you can do pictures, logos, words, abstract designs, you can do anything you want. But the one thing you do have to remember is that we're working on the back of our work. So this is the back. And the front of our work, the finished front, is going to be on this side. So if you're putting words, or if you're doing a logo or something that needs to be directional or facing the right way, you're going to want to do the reverse image on the back. So you'll do the mirror image on the back. And then as you finish your design, when you turn it over, you'll have the correct image on this side. So one little thing you can do is you can, do the mirror image on the back and then hold it up to a mirror and look at it in a mirror. And if it looks right in the mirror, then you know you've done it correctly. So yeah, but you can do words, you can do anything, really anything you can think of. There's no way to limit it, really. Any other questions about that? Does that help?
Yeah, great talk, great, yep.
Yeah, just remember though, this is the back. So if you're doing anything directional, make sure you're planning that out. So I'm going to be using Wool Ease Thick and Quick yarn today. What you want to use with, let's talk about this needle punch first. This needle punch is an Oxford needle punch. It was made by the Oxford Company in Cornwall, Vermont. And you can order these, and there's lots and lots of different, just a couple of different sizes. Some of them have longer needles, and some of them have smaller needles for smaller yarn. So there's different kinds you can get. And this is a really nice one, but you can pick them up pretty much anywhere. But you just want to make sure it's for needle punch. And you do want, with this punch, you want a yarn that's like a size 6, maybe a size 5. I was trying a size 4 in it today, and that was a little too thin. So I'm having the most success with a size 6. And so I'm using the Wool Ease Thick and Quick, size 6 bulky. And this is available at Michaels.com and also at lionbrand.com, or you can pop into a Michaels store and see how it looks in person. It comes in a really, really wide range and variety of different colors and prints and different textures. So, there's got to be something there you're going to love. This is one of our most popular yarns, so I really do recommend it. And let's get started with the punching, if there are no other questions.
Hey, Darren, I actually had one that came to me directly. Does the image have to be centered?
No, you can do anything you want. Yep, this is your design. Just think of it as like you're drawing on a piece of paper. You can draw or write or, do anything you want. Like if you're painting a picture, basically we're painting a picture or just doing a drawing. So anything you want. So just make sure when you thread the needle that the yarn is completely inside that trench, and it'll go all the way up through the handle and it comes out the other side. So the working yarn should be coming out the back, and then the tail should be coming out the front. And you want to leave a tail just about that long, maybe an inch or a half inch, and we'll trim that off at the end. So that's part of finishing. Okay. Now there are a couple of things that you have to do to make this work well. And if you don't do them exactly right, then you are going to run into some problems. So the first thing you need to do is you need to always start. So I'm going to start on the bottom point of my heart, and I'm going to move this direction up. So you always want your eye of your needle. So this is coming out of the eye of my needle. You want it facing towards you or away, basically away from the way I'm moving. So I'm moving this direction. So the eye of my needle has to face, back. So I'm moving forward, and the eye of the needle will have to face behind me. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing you have to do is you have to make sure when you're pushing it through the fabric that you're pushing it all the way through, each time clear up to the base. And if you don't push it clear up to the base, then if you only push it that far, then all of your loops are going to be different sizes. So you want to make sure you're pushing it clear up to the base, and you want to make sure that the tail of the yarn is coming through the front when you're starting. So moving, with the eye of the needle behind as it's moving, push it clear into the base. And I've got this ball of yarn, and as you can see, it comes out very smooth. It comes out really nice. But for needle punch, what you want to do is you want to make sure you pull out a couple of yards at a time, because if there's any friction or any resistance at all, it makes it really hard for it to go. So if it's in the ball of yarn and it's in a little bit of a tangle, you're going to run into problems and you're not going to have a good time. So, pull out a couple of extra yards so it's just sitting there completely loose with no resistance. And then really you just get going. So let me demonstrate. So this for my first stitch, I'm just going to hold that tail, just kind of hold it with my finger so it doesn't pull out. Make sure you don't have anything in your way. Okay. So you pull the needle up back to your side. You don't want to lift it, because if you lift the needle, you can see I'm pulling that yarn back and it's going to make my loops different sizes again. So you always want your needle to be just grazing the edge of the fabric. So you pull it up and then you push it down. And then you pull it up out of the fabric. It's still grazing the very edge. You advance it just a little bit and then you push it down. Pull it up, push it down. Sometimes it gets caught. When you're going on a diagonal like this, sometimes it gets caught and you just kind of have to jiggle it a little bit. Push it down. Pull it up, move it forward, push it down. And it looks super easy when I'm doing it. It actually is really easy, but when you're first learning something, of course, it might take a couple of times before you really start to get the hang of it. So advance it and push it down. And then once you get going, you can actually kind of go pretty fast. But I don't like to go fast because I enjoy the process. So where am I going that I have to work so fast?
And Darren, once you are doing this continuous movement, you don't have to hold anything in the back, right? Just that initial tail?
Just when you get it started, whenever you start it, you just have to kind of hold it there so it doesn't pull through.
Right. Okay.
And you just follow your line. Now, I like to, and it is recommended that you do the outline first to kind of establish your space. And then you can either move to the background, or I would do the center. I would do the outline and then fill in the heart and then fill in the background. That would be the way I would do it. But you can try it different ways, but it's nice to kind of define your space by doing the outline first. So any questions so far? How are we doing?
No questions yet.
Let's look at the other side. So you can see the other side, you get these loops on the other side. And then this tail, all you do for finishing is you just cut that off flush. And that's the way that they've always been finished. You don't have to sew it down or do anything. You just cut it off flush. And then you can just keep going. And you can really use almost any kind of yarn. It works best with a smooth yarn with an even texture. It works best with a yarn that isn't super, super fuzzy, but you can always try any yarn that you have. As long as it flows through the eye of the needle smoothly, then it will work fine. But some of the novelty yarns don't work as well. Okay.
And Darren, you mentioned that there's obviously smaller needle punches, right? That will accommodate a medium or a worsted weight yarn.
Yeah, I don't have them here with me, I don't think, but I have a set that's really, really tiny that you could actually put even embroidery floss through. So they do come in all kinds of different sizes.
Oh, wow.
I really prefer, I like this number 6 though. I think it gives a nice look, but it's fun to try all different kinds.
Right. And if you want to do different textures on your work.
Yeah, you could do different size yarns and different textures on the same project to give it a different, to give it a different kind of a look. Make it really nice. All right, and then just follow the line. But as you can see, as I'm working, I'm turning my work so that the eye of my needle, if you turn it this way, so that the eye of the needle is in front of you, when you try to push it, you can see it's pushing. It's not really able to push it's trying to force the yarn through, and it's not just kind of guiding it through. But if the eye of the needle is facing behind you, it just kind of goes right through with the needle, and it's not fighting itself. But let me turn it backwards and try to show that again. So see, if you're trying to do that, you can see it's not going to work. So just make sure as you're working, you're turning your work Make sure you're always pushing it all the way through. And really, that's pretty much it. Once you get set up with the right fabric and you kind of get the rhythm of it down, then it's pretty easy. So what questions do we have right now? Any questions going on?
Yeah. Okay, so Kathy wants to know if it is okay to use a rug hooking frame rather than a hoop.
Anything that secures your fabric nicely. And if you can use I'm not sure what a rug hooking frame would look like, but what you need, I have a different frame that's square. And on the edges of it, it has like a wire brush where the bristles are facing out. And that's what is actually recommended for this, but they're quite expensive. So as a beginner, you probably don't want to invest a lot in it until you decide if you're going to like it. But all you need is something that will hold. You could just take a picture frame and nail the fabric around the picture frame. And just as long as it's pulled tight, that would work fine. Anything that's going to hold the fabric pulled tight and hold it secure so it's not going to slip. You didn't make any, back when this was originally invented back in the colonial times, they didn't have fancy things. They just made do with whatever they had.
Okay. Oh, and from Winnipeg Public Library, they want to know if you intentionally don't push the tool through all the way each time, will you get varying levels of pile for a more textured look? I guess you could intentionally do different loops.
But that's exactly what'll happen. If you don't push it through all the way and you do different, you will get different levels. And if you're trying to do that on purpose, what you could do is you could put a mark on it. So that way you're making sure you're doing it, at the level you want. So you can tell. You could put like 4 or 5 different marks on it. And then, you go that far and go that far, and do different, and you would get different levels. See some of these, I don't know if you can tell, some of these are really short.
Right, kind of like a boucle.
Yeah, so you would get different, you could use that as, you could do a tone on tone stripe, or you could do, maybe a different texture if something's supposed to look rough or like pebbly or something. Yeah, you can, the more, it's going to look very artistic. You can come up with all these ideas and it's going to make it really, really interesting.
Okay. And Susan wants to know, what kind of tension are you using on the yarn? Or are you just letting it do its thing?
Zero tension.
Right.
The most important thing is zero. So you pull it out and you just lay it out like this. You want to make sure it's not getting like wrapped around your chair, or make sure, give your cat some treats and send them to the other room. You don't want you don't want any resistance or any tension at all. It's like zero tension. You just kind of want to have some like laying out freely.
Right, just that one holding the yarn when you do your first punch.
Yep, you just hold that down so that the first one, so it doesn't pull back through.
Right.
And you keep going.
Okay, so Nancy Norman wants to know, her punch hook is small and doesn't have a trench. How do I thread it?
Oh, I don't know. I've never seen. Does it have a hole all the way through it, or what?
Right. Let's ask if it has an actual.
If it doesn't have a trench, but it has a hole that goes all the way through,
Right.
It originally probably came with a wire. So what you can do is you can get some, if you have any wire at home, like some copper wire, like people might use for jewelry making, or some florist wire, and just bend it to make a little hook on the end and put it down through, and then hook it on there and then pull it up. And so you want to do it in a way that your working yarn is coming out the back, and that you're, you want to make it so that the working yarn's coming out the back, but you can use a little wire to string through it, hook it with the yarn, and then pull it through. You probably do it this way. You'd pull pull it through this way, so your working yarn is here.
Right.
Did that answer the question? I'm not sure if that's what this question was.
Right. I hope. Oh, yeah, I mentioned it. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, someone put a link in where there was a tool that uses wires, so that might be.
Yeah. And so I'm going to cut my yarn. So to finish a color, you just want to go to the front. You want to cut your yarn, and you want all of your ends. And this is going to sound really unnatural to people that knit or sew or anything or crochet. You want all of your loose ends on the front of your work. So when you start, you want them on the front, and when you end, you want them on the front. And you're going to feel like that's wrong. But all you want to do is just cut it off flush and it'll blend right in. If you leave your loose ends on the back, over time, they might work to the front, and then maybe 6 months or a year later, you'll have that really long piece of fabric poke out on the front. And obviously, you can just trim that off later. But if you've given it as a gift, or if you've sold them at a craft fair, you want your work to last, and you want it to be as professional as possible. So that is the traditional way of ending it and starting it with the work on the front. So I'm going to start another color to show you how to start it again. And if you have any questions, please. If you have any questions about yarn choices, if you do have any more questions about fabric.
Nothing yet.
So I'm just gonna.
Yeah, later on I did see, oh yeah, your needle's a little
I'm sorry.
camera. There we go.
My camera turned. That's what's wrong.
Yeah.
So you just pull it through the eye of the needle. So you want your tail down here. Wait, my computer says my battery's low. It's plugged in. Oh, there we go. The thing was just not quite pushed in all the way. Okay, so what you want is your tail coming out the front, and then your working yarn will be coming out the back. So make sure you do that. When I first started learning, a couple of times I had it backwards, and it's just a real mess. It didn't work at all. So just make sure it's down in that trench. And then this is the front. So this is the front right here. So I had it right. This is the back. So what you're gonna do is, I'm not gonna leave a super long tail because you don't really want to waste the yarn. And then you're just gonna push it all the way through. Let's look at the front, and then I'm gonna just get that tail, and I'm just gonna kind of hold it. If you don't hold it, you don't have to, but chances are it's gonna pull out. I was able to do it, but it's just a little easier if you hold it. And then you just want to kind of keep going around. And when you're working on a diagonal like this, it's a little harder to do, but if you're working on straight lines, it's nice to kind of stagger the stitches so it's kind of like a brick wall, so that they're not kind of lining up straight, that they're kind of staggered. It gives you a little better coverage over time. So when you're going on a diagonal, it doesn't really matter as much, but like here where it's the straight line, let me see. So if you can try to stagger them so that you're going in between the stitches on the previous row, it's a little nicer. And see, I didn't row any off my ball, and it was pulling it off the ball, which seems like with no tension, but I could feel it not working well. So make sure you do wind some off.
And Darren, if you realize you made a mistake or you want to pull it back out, do you basically, wow, oof, that was easy.
So that's the good news and the bad news, because if you make a mistake, it's easy to take out. But if your kids or your cat, or if you're walking along and you get your shoe caught on it and you trip over it, you can rip out hours of work by mistake. So yeah, that's the good news and the bad news. So, and once you get the hang of it, you can really go pretty quick.
And obviously, once you finish your row and you secure by snipping off the last bit, it's secure. Then that's it. It won't unravel as quickly as you just did it now.
Nope, not unless if somebody gets a pair of tweezers and finds that little end and pulls it.
Right.
I mean, if somebody gets, like, say, gets caught on something, like if somebody's looking at it and they catch their ring on it and they pull their hand away, it'll pull out just like a rug will run. So, but hopefully nobody will do that.
Right.
Any other questions?
Yeah, let's see. We've got here. Do you cut your yarn when you put out your work, when you put your work away, or do you leave the needle attached? Let's say you want to.
I would probably just go ahead and cut it and make sure it's like trimmed off so that it doesn't get the risk of being, because it's so hard. I mean, it's so easy to start it again. So let's say I have to quit for a while, push your work to the front, go ahead and trim it off. And oops, I didn't come all the way through. Go ahead and trim it off. See, my end got pulled back to the back. So I'm just going to pull it to the front. Just go to one of these loops that are the next one back and make sure it's to the front. And then I like to go ahead and trim them, or you could leave them and trim them all at the end. And then like the next day or whenever you come back and you want to work on it some more, hope I cut my yarn. You can just start right back. But this way it's kind of safe. Like if somebody picks it up and looks at it, they're not going to like drop your hook and make, pull the yarn by mistake. And if you don't have any loose ends, it's more safe that it's not going to get unraveled by mistake.
Right.
Then just thread your needle. So starting it and stopping it are very easy.
Mhm. And what happens if you tie a knot instead of cutting it? Miss Jade wants to know.
I mean, I don't think anything would really happen. It's
It'll
not
just
gonna,
add bulk,
it
pretty
probably
much.
won't look as nice. I don't know. Like, what do you mean instead of cutting it? Like just tie a knot in the back or the front?
Right, I think that's what she means. It'll just be a little difficult, I think, to tie a knot. Um, but yeah, I think they're concerned with maybe having that end pull out or something.
Yeah, I usually just keep all the ends trimmed as I go, just so that there's
Mhm.
not that risk. Really, I should try to keep them a little closer. You don't want a lot of white showing,
Right.
but we're not being perfect. I always tell my students, perfection is your enemy.
Mhm.
If you wait till you can do something perfect, you'll never do anything.
Right.
Each time you do something, you'll do it a little better. So, we'll just keep going.
Right.
Any
Yeah.
other questions? I want to show you a few other things, talk about a few other things. So I'm going to go ahead and end this again. So as we're learning and as we're practicing, we don't want to get too fussy and get too caught up on a lot of rules and details.
Mhm.
But once you start making larger pieces, excuse me, once you start making larger pieces, you do want to make sure that you're keeping everything, really even. You want to try to, so you can see on the back of this one, the back looks pretty neat. I do have a few little spaces, but everything, the back almost looks as good as the front. That's what my great grandmother always said. Whenever you do needlework, the back should look pretty much as good as the front. So we always want to try to make our work look as professional as possible. This is the very first thing I ever made. And you can see it's a complete mess on the back. It looks really bad. But even though it looks so bad on the back, the front still looks pretty cute. It could still be used as so you could stuff this and make a little pillow out of it or sew it on a bag and make a little patch. So even if things aren't perfect, on the back, you can still make it usable. Same thing with this one. This was the second thing I made, just practicing. And, it's not real great, but you can't tell from the front. So each time you do something, it'll look a little better and you'll be, do better and better and better.
Oh, wow, that one had a lot of negative space in the back, but the
Yeah,
front
that's what I mean.
was,
It's not
yeah.
good. It's just learning and it's practice. But it looks, but this one looks worse to me, but this is the second one. That one looks a little better. Yeah, you don't want this white. You don't
Right.
want it. But like I said, the front doesn't look so bad, even though the back. So as you're learning, you can still make pieces that look really nice and just keep practicing and practicing. And then I realized that I was leaving too much negative space. And so on this one, I really jammed it in and it looks really good on the back until you let go of it. I put so much
Uh-oh.
in, I put too much yarn in. So now it's
Uh,
going to roll up and it's not going to lay flat. If I laid this out and worked it with a steamer, like a steam iron or something, and pinned it out, I could probably get it to lay flat. But you don't want to use this much yarn, or else it's just not going to be right.
Maybe.
So you want to make sure you're not putting too much in it. Although from the front, when I press down on this, it feels like a very firm, very plush carpet. So,
Mm.
if you're making a rug, maybe you do want to try to put as much in as possible. So there are different ways of doing it, but there's some things that can go wrong. You don't want it to see it's just going to curl up. So, that's not real good either. So just kind of, this was another one when I was learning, and there's still a lot of space. But again, the front doesn't look too bad. So as you're learning, it'll take a time. And then once you just, honestly, all I had to do was just stop and just pay attention to what I was doing. And then, just try a little harder and it worked out perfect. I think this one looks really neat. So,
Mhm.
but there's still a few little negative spaces, but you know, that doesn't matter so much. Okay. Do you have any other questions? Anything?
No, people are very impressed that you have your first projects.
So whenever you once you've done all this, this one surprisingly, all of the you can see it looks like a really clean line right here when I changed colors. Usually it doesn't. Usually what happens, even for the best needle punch person, you have to, after you do it, you have to get like a darning needle. And you can see right here how this pink and this gray loop are kind of overlapped. That's always going to happen. So you kind of have to get in there with the darning needle and fuss over it a little bit and kind of untangle them. So you see right here, can you see that that pink is wrapped around that part of that pink loop is wrapped around the gray loop.
Right.
So for part of finishing is you just kind of want to get in there and untangle, and that'll give you a very nice clean edge. Now, if you were doing something that was supposed to be bushy or, you know, really uneven, like I don't know, something like an animal with fluffy fur or something, you wouldn't have to do that. But if you're doing something where you want a real crisp line, like you're outlining words, you know, you would really want to try to get in here and kind of separate all these out. And you can get a really nice crisp line. See right here, this one, I don't know, is that showing?
It is, yeah.
So you really want to, and this is normal. The most experienced needle punch artist has to do this. This is part of finishing.
Mhm.
So you just kind of have to get in there and fuss over them. It's not so bad. And, you know, I didn't really fuss over this one so much. And you can see right here, the line isn't straight. And it's still okay. I mean, nobody's complained about it. So, but if you really want to get a nice crisp line, and maybe you don't want a crisp line. So that's, you know, these are decisions you can make as an artist. You know, what is the look you want? See right here, that loop is caught over the gray one.
Great.
So
I'll give you a little time check. We have about 20 minutes left.
all right. So just a really quick review. You want to make sure you have the right fabric. So you can try different types of fabric. And once you get one that you like and that's working well, then you can call that the right fabric. You want to make sure that you are pushing your needle all the way through. You want to make sure that the working yarn is moving this way and the eye of the needle is staying, you know, in the opposite direction of the way your needle is moving. And you want to make sure you have plenty of yarn out with zero resistance, like negative tension, like you want it to be moving super easy and fluid. Those are the most important things that you need to do. Other than that, pretty much you'll be fine. So if you follow those little, I don't like to tell people they have to do certain things, but if you do follow those, you'll have really good luck. And so what do you do with this after you finish it? So like what, you know, why are we making these and what good are they anyway? So you can just leave them in the hoop. So if I finish this heart, of course, this is the back. Once I finish this heart and I can finish the background, then you take it out of the hoop and you put the front on this side, and you want to set it up so that the top of it is up here, and you can just hang that on the wall like a frame. You could just cut this off at the edge of the frame, or you could fold it under and kind of sew it or tape it. I would probably just cut it off clean to the edge, and then you could hang it up like a picture, and that could be like a picture in a frame. Could be really cute. That's what I had this one for a while, and then I took it out of the frame to use it for something else. And so I didn't leave enough of an edge. So if I wanted to fold this down, it would be very hard. I would have to really fuss over it. I might even glue it instead of sewing it, because that's going to be really kind of hard to do. So if you do want to sew it down, make sure you leave yourself plenty of seam allowance. So this piece, I planned it out in advance, and I folded it over twice, and then I sewed it down with just a regular needle and thread. So just regular needle and thread. And then once you sew it like this, then you can think of this basically as like any piece of fabric. So that's how I made my rabbit pillow. It was a larger rectangle. I finished it like this, and then I just I put right sides together, and I sewed along this edge with the fabric, turned it inside out, or turned the right side out, and stuffed it and then sewed it shut, and it's a nice pillow. My grandmother used to have things that looked just like this, only they were bigger, and she had them on her dining chairs for cushions. And so they were like on the dining, just like a little chair cushion, and that could be very nice. You could sew this onto a jacket. You could sew it on the back of a jean jacket. It could be cute. You could use it as a patch. You could sew it on a jacket and leave the top open and make like a large pocket. You could sew backing on it and make it into a little handbag. You could put a zipper on the top. You could line it with pockets. So you could really think, what would you do with it, Giselle? You think of anything that might be fun?
Oh, well, that little pumpkin one, that could be a really cute, reusable little trick or treat bag. You could make it into like,
Yeah, that would be
sew it
cute.
onto a
Yeah.
tote or
Mhm.
something sustainable. But
Yeah,
I
and
liked the seat sort of cushion idea. That's fun.
yeah, like when after I made this and sewed it down, I thought, I've seen this before. My grandmother used to have these. I don't think she made them though. I've seen them in antique stores, just like the ones she had. They must have been mass produced. So,
Uh,
but you can do all kinds of things with them. So let me quickly just show you about some finishing. If you wanted to use it as a rug, so let's say that you make a nice big piece and you do want to use it as a rug. I would not use it as a rug. Once I went through all this work, I want to hang it on the wall or keep it somewhere nice.
yes.
But if you do want to use it for a rug, I recommend that you fold it over like this, leave yourself plenty of seam allowance, roll it over twice when you sew it down. And then you might want to get like a piece of felt or some kind of a strip of some kind of a nice stiff, like some kind of a cotton or something, and sew around all of the edges to reinforce it so that as people were like walking over it and kicking the edges, it'll help secure it. When you're sewing down the edge, you want to try to, I didn't work on this one. I wasn't very careful because I was just playing with this one, but you want to try to make sure you have nice straight lines so that you can get a nice edge. You don't really want your your loops coming over the edge, but you don't want to see any fabric on the side either. So you want to, if you can give yourself a nice edge, even with this circle, give yourself a nice clean edge on the circle, and then it makes it easier to sew it down. And if you don't like to sew, and if you hate sewing, a lot of people really don't like to sew and they avoid projects like this so they don't have, because they don't want to sew. You don't have to worry about it because all you have to do is just pin it out, just fold it over and pin it. And then with just a needle and thread, if you are a sewer and you do like to sew, then you can, be as precise as you want. So you can kind of come up from the back to hide your knot. Nobody's really ever going to see it anyway, but I didn't tie a big enough knot. So that's the thing, this fabric is very loose, so you do need to make sure you're tying a big enough knot. So kind of go through it.
And you is fabric glue not secure enough probably for this?
Well, there are different ways you can finish it. So traditionally, these are finished by folding them over and hand sewing them, and that's what I'm showing you. Mm-hmm. You certainly can. You could fold them over and glue them. I would probably hot glue them. Fabric glue might work. There's certain kinds of glue you can buy at a hardware store. It's carpet glue or rug glue. Some of those have very strong fumes, so you have to be careful. So get one that's safe, and you can glue them down that way. So, I mean, it doesn't matter how you're going to finish them. And it really, like if I were going to use this as a patch on my jacket, I might not want to use that rug glue. If I was going to use this on a pillow on my sofa that people were going to be like laying against, I might not, I might want to hand sew it.
Right.
But, it's up to you, and it just depends. Now I'm actually doing a half decent job, but you just want to just not even care. Nobody's going to see this because you're probably going to put a backing on it anyway. So you can just, take big stitches, and I mean, this isn't going to be very nice and it might not hold, but I'm just giving you permission to not be like super, your grandmother's not going to yell at you because I told you could do it that way. So, but try to do the best job you can, but I know a lot of people hate to sew, and if they know they have to finish something by sewing it, they'll avoid the whole craft. So you don't have to worry about it. And then you just go all the way around the edge. You can be really precise, and you can fold and do a mitered corner. I haven't done this isn't set up to do a mitered corner, but you could make like you could do a mitered corner where you fold it in like this and then, oh, I used to know how to do it. I haven't done, oh, here we go. You can, if you really want to get fussy, you can fold down a mitered corner, but because nobody's going to see the back, it's not meant to ever be seen. I would probably just finish it like this, where I sew one down and the other one on top of it. And then just whip stitch it. Another thing you can do if you think it's going to get a lot of wear is you can paint before you sew it down, like at this point, you can paint the whole back of it with carpet glue. And as it dries, it will really secure everything in place and help keep it from unraveling. So if I were doing a rug or something, I might do that. I would consider that. And then another part of finishing is, if you can look at this, you can see the loops on the back. Here's the front, but the loops on the back are kind of really flat and really kind of pressed down. What I did for this is I steam blocked it. So traditionally they are steam blocks. So if you're using wool, you don't have to worry about it because the wool can take it. But if you're using acrylic, you want to be careful because the acrylic will melt. And that's what happened here, but that's fine because it's the back. And I think because it's singed like that and melted a little bit, it actually helps to keep it a little more secure. So just put like a towel or a thin cloth over it. Get your iron ready, hot for steam, and just hit it like this, like steam, 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 steam. But like, don't hold it down, like steam, steam, steam in one spot for a long time, because it could melt the other side too. So just steam it, steam it, steam it, steam it quickly. And then if you want to do it again, but that will make it lay flat. That's why these lay really super flat, because they've been steam blocked. See, this one, I didn't steam block it, and it lays pretty flat, but it's not as, nice as this one. So any questions about finishing? It's really pretty simple. It's not, I mean, we could make it as complicated as we want, but I like to keep things simple.
Yeah. No questions yet on finishing, but yes, I'm sure these are all very great crafters that know how to finish their pieces. Yeah, this pattern and the heart pattern are at the back of the class notes that we provided. Let's see.
I
Yeah,
just included those so you'd have something easy to do, but if you want to find any picture you have, if you can draw it up, make it a little bigger, make it the size you want, you can really transfer anything down. Just don't make it too complex for your first one. Yeah. Anything else? That's pretty much all I have, unless if you have any other questions.
Let's see. Anyone else? Go ahead and.
One thing I'm gonna, this is a little gauge, and you can, sometimes you want to keep, depending on, I don't like to talk about this too much, because depending on the size of yarn you have, this is not a hard and fast rule, but you want to try to have in the center of your work, you want to try to have 4 or 5 stitches. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I have 6, so that's a little dense. I could reduce that down to 5, but for the yarn I was using, this felt like the right tension. So this is kind of just a guide. This is a square inch cutout. On the border or on the edge, like when I first started that heart, you want it to be much more dense. So you might want to have 6 or 7. But some yarn, if you have a number 6 yarn, sometimes a number 6 yarn could be very soft and fluffy and very lofty. And sometimes it could be very thick and very dense. And so it's going to act different, and it's going to take up more or less space depending on how thick it is. Even if they're both a number 6, it could be more dense or more lofty. So something like this is a good reference, but it's not something you can live and die by. But I bought this, I bought my loom from this Oxford shop and my needle. And this, wait a second. If you pop on this website, she has a lot of really great videos that go into much more in depth of what I've showed you here. So just for future learning, I always like to let people know about future learning. And this was the best tutorial source that I found. So just wanted to pass that on.
And then one viewer does have a question. Her needle, my punching needle keeps ripping the fabric, and the yarn won't loop. Am I putting too much pressure?
Well, shouldn't rip the fabric. You might not have the right fabric.
Right, or may not be the
Because
right
I
one.
mean, I can, I can push that. I mean, you wouldn't want to do it that hard, but you see my fabric's not really ripping. It makes those holes, but then they go. So you really probably don't have the right fabric. So, I mean, because I'm trying to, it really doesn't. So, yeah, you might not have
Yeah,
the
maybe
right.
try a different fabric.
Yeah, try a
And
different fabric.
is yours called something in particular? Like should they call for? What should they ask for?
It's just called monk's cloth. The only thing I can tell you, sometimes this stripe is gold, like it's darker in like a gold color, and sometimes it's white. Just make sure it has that stripe in it. And if they try to bring something out like this that doesn't have a stripe, don't fall for it.
Right.
You can see
that
how
is very
loose this
flimsy.
looks. This just looks really loose.
It's like cheesecloth. Yeah.
Yeah, almost. Yeah, I was very disappointed. I bought a whole yard of it too. So maybe just buy like a half yard or a fourth yard for a small project until you're sure.
Yeah.
Anything else? If you do have once you start working on something, you might end up deciding you have questions. So feel free to contact me on Instagram. My name on Instagram is Mr. Woolly Bear. Giselle will put it in the chat for you. And if you want to send me a direct message on Facebook, it's just my name spelled out just the way it is. And you'll see my picture on both of those. Just send me a direct message. Once you have any questions, I'll be glad to get back to you and help you any way I can. I hate the thought of somebody out there stuck when I could just, answer a quick question and help you. So yeah, just reach out if you need any other help. Are there any other questions?
No, I want to go get my tools too and start a little project.
It's so much fun. I wish I did this more often. I spend so much time knitting and crocheting. I need to start doing this more often because it's really fun. I really enjoy it. So
it'd be fun for Christmas, making little Christmas trees.
Yeah.
Well, those are very linear. That could be fun.
Yeah.
Yay.
All right. Well, thanks for coming to class. Don't forget to practice. That's when all the learning happens, when you're practicing. So have a great night.